The AI Act mostly governs the development of AI tools.
What goes wrong when you promise too much? I guess that's where it all begins.
What's the biggest myth around the AI Act, or what's the biggest myth around like the Consumer Act?
Of course, as said, I mean, everybody needs protections. Dealers do, consumers do. I'm not taking that away from anybody.
Welcome back, Peter and Mikko, to the Gear Change episode. Really great
Be
to
back.
still be here with you in the studio, even though it's quite warm and we're needing water. So in the Gear Change episode, what we always do with our guests is pick up some of the outtakes from the main episode, and then also any myth busting around what people might think is happening. If there's like a myth around AI or a myth around the Consumer Act that we can help them understand. But just coming back, Peter, Mikko, if people didn't hear the main episode, could you just reintroduce yourselves for the listeners for this episode?
Okay, Mikko.
Hello, Mikko Koskinen from Lexia Attorneys. And my main expertise is on the field of tech law and contract law and those types of things.
Cool.
And hello, Petteri, Jaari. And my main practice areas are litigation, both in civil and some white-collar crime defense work.
White-collar crime, what do you mean, like corporate? As in like...
Corporate, management liabilities, environmental liabilities, representing companies, work safety, and then cyber crimes.
I mean, there's a lot of that. I think with technology, the more technology we see, the more at risk there are lots of risks around, cyber attacks. It's constant, isn't it? And so we've got to be super careful and super, make sure that all of our staff are never leave a laptop open, don't share a password, all those kind of usual things. So just thinking back about the main episode, we touched upon the Consumer Act, which is how do you make sure that you are compliant, not leaving yourself open to risk. What are the kind of the big pieces of advice we can give to retailers to help them thinking about how they manage the sale of used vehicles in a transparent way to reduce that risk of consumer comebacks, so that there's as much transparency in the transaction as possible? What should they be thinking about as retailers, and what advice do you tend to be pulled in to get involved with in your work?
Yes, of course, marketing your products, the cars, give the right, correct information. Don't exaggerate. Please tell about the information you need. If there's any defects in the car or it's older car, what might be something you should repair, or it's going to have to be repaired by next after 50,000 kilometers. And easy information. And then, of course, like I told earlier, I mean, if there is an issue and the consumer wants to, the car breaks down, or if there's any issue, please do reply, answer immediately, whatever your own status or argument are. Because at the end of the day, I've experienced big problems can be solved with a good customer service. And small problems can be generated into huge by not being in contact with the customer.
Yeah. So I think we didn't even cover that in the first episode, but actually respond quickly. If something goes wrong, don't let it linger, because you can.
Don't put it under the cover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it can just create huge frustration, particularly with a purchase as large as a vehicle. We also talked about in that first episode about how, I think most retailers, in my experience, when they buy used vehicles from the trade, there's a lot of trade-to-trade transactions. We see a difference in price from a consumer selling a vehicle privately, whether they trade it in or whether they sell it at the auction. And that reflects the work that person who's going to sell it on will have to do to recondition the vehicle ready for sale, because they are then going to take the liability. So if I was buying a car directly from you, Peter, I wouldn't expect you to have refurbed it or replaced the brakes. But if I'm buying it from a retailer, Mikko is the retailer, I would hope that he's bought the car from you and done all of the work so that I don't have to.
But you can't, in a used car, but if you fix it to become a new car, then it's, of course, the margins and the car price will differ. But of course, there are consumers that want to buy a cheaper car.
Yes.
That means that they should expect that it might be something that will have to be serviced.
Yeah.
Apparently after 5,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers.
It's not, I suppose, you'd expect to, wouldn't you? And this is, I suppose, where the Consumer Act is there to protect the consumer, but also to protect the vendor. So there are it's got to be reasonable within, I suppose, the parameters that are kind of decided. Coming on to you then, Mikko, in the first episode, we talked an awful lot about the work that you do in the tech space and largely now AI, because that's a huge topic. For a year ago when we started the podcast, we had literally just started to explore the scope of AI, even though there was a huge amount already being done in the background. In the main episode, there were 3 areas that you mentioned that you kind of focus largely on with your work. Can we just expand on those? So there were kind of 3, I suppose, use cases.
Yeah, well, okay, yes, as said, AI Act mostly governs the development of AI tools. And we also have the general purpose AI tools is another category in there, which is a significant one, which means all these, your chat GPTs and these types of the big language models. But as said, AI Act as such, it governs mostly the development. And as a deployer, someone who uses AI systems, you first and foremost need to distinguish if you are using high-risk systems or non-high-risk systems. And then you need to take care of transparency and as I said, common sense uses of AI and regarding if you are using it for transactions, you need to maybe govern your organization in that sense and maybe have some rules how to do it to avoid these marketing.
Just explain to me what you say. You say high risk systems. So just really help me to understand that anybody listening, they know, does this apply to me or not? So we talked about, I think, was it like the financial systems or lending? Just expand a little bit on where your work takes you when it comes to high risk systems, different systems. What's less of a risk?
Yeah, well, there are 2 main categories of high-risk systems. There are forbidden uses, which are some manipulation and maybe a little bit more malicious uses of these kind of tools. Although one might say that marketing is always a little bit manipulative. So it's maybe if you're using AI for that, then it's forbidden. But normal marketing, you can use it.
Manipulate.
Yeah. Subliminal techniques. No, but it's those are the forbidden uses, and if you're using it for any sensitive personal data kind of purposes in inquiring or making inferences of people's sexual orientation or these types of uses.
Yeah.
So they are forbidden uses, and then we have the high risk systems, which include if there's a system used for assessing creditworthiness or recruitment or there's a list of quite practical list actually of different systems and uses which then require the documentation of and quality management and all sorts of post-market supervision of how they properly used, and also human supervision and human oversight. Maybe more interestingly,
there's a list you mentioned there about like financial systems, like creditworthiness, HR as well, recruitment. So it's important as a large organization, if you're a dealer group, work with your legal advisors to ensure that you comply on all of the list of the areas that the EU AI Act is going to cover, that you're going to need to, as a business, ensure that you're up to speed with and you're compliant with, so that you're not recruiting or rejecting people with an AI decisioning tool. You've got to have a human interaction to make sure that you're validating it. The other thing as well that I think is really, we always cover on the gear change, which is like myth busting. Like, what's the biggest myth around the AI Act, or what's the biggest myth around like the Consumer Act that retailers don't even realize or they get wrong?
Well, what goes wrong when you promise too much? I guess that's where it all begins. When you tell that this is...
Don't oversell it.
Don't oversell it. But that's difficult to say because we all want to oversell our services and products. So, but definitely something to be aware of, because at these days when everybody is their own AI robot lawyer and there are a lot of, excuse my French, ambulance chasers around. So be careful, because it's very easy to start pulling then some money. And, because of the margins of the car dealers, profits also, that, if they start litigating, it's also expensive for them, even though I know it's expensive for the consumer, but sometimes there is kind of a vision or an illusion that if we demand enough, they'll give something. And
I think all you have to do is watch daytime television, which I don't. I'm too busy. But you see the people like the ambulance chaser type firms who are encouraging that kind of behavior. And it's just, it kind of annoys me a bit because you just think they're creating
an environment or an industry in this business too. That, of course, as said, I mean, everybody needs protections. Dealers do, consumers do. I'm not taking that away from anybody.
Yeah.
But in a way, when you're starting to exaggerate in order to get business for your own sector, which we all want, so this is when it starts to take. And at the end of the day, it will not be for the benefit for the consumer if it's all claims, because that will be in the price then also.
Yeah, you don't want to kind of be having to charge more for something just because of the risk of what might come back. You want to be able to be transparent, to know that you're selling something, you're not overselling something, but the consumer is showing what they've bought and they're happy with that as they see it. So we say, like, you buy it warts and all, you see it with all its blemishes, and you kind of accept that it's going to have some blemishes if it's a used vehicle and you want to buy a cheaper vehicle. What about, Mikko, in your world, in the AI space and in the tech space, are there any kind of common myths or misconceptions about how AI will start to impact the automotive sector or the customers that you work with?
Well, this is not maybe such a legal point of view, but in general, I would say maybe at least tech-minded people might underestimate the need for human contact, and it's still pretty good, and something that there probably will be. Well, I'm not going to predict what will happen, but in a way, there's already, you can see, kind of counterculture to the technology, because everything is, always you always need an app and this sort of thing. So people are maybe the demand for human contact in services and in business, of course, without talking about other areas of human life, but also in business, I think there is, I wouldn't be surprised if there would be, kind of even stronger demand from the
It's an option. I think there's a lot of times we're talking about that these times, that how can we differ? What can we bring as an added value? It's the customer service. And like I said, that if you are there personally taking care of the customer, this is something that they will be competing. Car dealers, lawyers, whoever.
Yeah.
You can give something extra, and we still need the human connection there.
People buy from people. I think it was interesting, actually. I write a column for a UK automotive magazine, and the column this month is all about human connection. And I've got 3 teenage boys, and in our house, they kind of go, I've wasted so much time on my phone. I want to see my friends. And actually, we all had, growing up, freedom to go and play with our friends. And actually now they're just stuck on these phones looking at a life.
They don't talk in the phone. Everything is...
Yeah, it's crazy. So I think,
And about customer connection, a human connection, I have a Volvo and I have my 4th or 5th Volvo, and always bought it from the same guy. And he doesn't need, when he calls me after the 3 years period, I'm having a private leasing. So I'm buying a new one from him because I always made business with him, always, but since the 5 cars. If we can name brands here, I don't know, you might edit it away.
I don't mind. No, I'm on my 4th Volvo. I talk about it openly, so I know.
So in a way that it's easy. Yeah. If there would be an AI connecting me, I don't know, maybe I'll change the brand. No, I don't know about the brand, but the sales guy.
I did have a great experience. When I bought it, it was a different sales guy, but he made it really fun for me and my son to go and road test it. Didn't come with me, gave me the keys and went, go out with your co-driver, off you go. So he made it really fun because my son's now 19 and driving, and I think they're future customers potentially. But you're absolutely right. I think you buy from somebody who knows you and understands your life, because he's known you. If you're on your 5th vehicle with him, I dare say your children have grown up through this brand, and they've seen, he's seen your family life change or evolve. And we do kind of need that connection. So just thinking about then, we always have a tradition on this podcast, so tech that you can't live without. Peter, coming to you first.
Well, it would be boring if I'd said my AirPods and iPhone, so I took the lamps that are going, how did you say?
Smart lamps.
Smart lamps.
Yeah.
I would be wondering how I'm going to use my new Wi-Fi washing machine, but I still haven't figured it out.
I have a button on mine. I just set it to go overnight. So I haven't used the Wi-Fi
I know
on it.
40 or 60 degrees.
Go. That's it. I love it. It's quite old school. Mikko, how about you?
It's maybe a little bit piece of older technology. It's pen and paper.
Oh, you got a remarkable.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I don't.
I had
just a pen and paper.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's actually an interesting device. But I mean, just traditional pen and paper because if you really want to, for instance, if you want to study the regulation, EU regulation, they're quite long. You always need to have it on paper, and then you have a pen, and then you go through if you really want to understand it. And that's,
marker.
Yeah, and that applies to anything you really want to understand. I would highly. That's always my choice.
That was our tech lawyer.
Yeah.
I used to do like mind maps. I just like to draw it on a piece of, and then you kind of like, and now I can scan the mind map and I can do a document with it, which is brilliant. So I do use a combination of pen and paper.
Do you use the remarkable?
I don't, but I've had 3 guests on the podcast talk about it and they love it because I've got an iPad, but it's all shiny. But apparently the remarkable is the closest thing to paper and pen.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, apparently it's recommended. So listen, thank you both so much for staying with us for this gear change episode. It's been really, I've learned a lot and I do on every podcast. So every day is a school day for me. The final tradition that we always have is a dream road trip destination. And we're in Helsinki recording this. Is there anywhere in Finland that you would say you have to drive on this road or anywhere in the Nordics?
Drive on the road or go somewhere.
Go somewhere.
How long are you here?
Oh, no, I mean, not for me, but for anyone. If I come back, like where's a road trip destination that you would recommend?
A longer one, of course, depending on the season. If it's winter, to Lapland. If it's summer, go to Suomenlinna outside the old castle area. So.
My son wants to go to Lapland. He's kind of made me promise I've got to take him.
And he would say, go to Turku.
No. Well, that's a good option, but
It's a nice.
Yeah. But as a road trip, actually, if you want to see the nature, then I would suggest drive from Helsinki to Kuopio and then go to a place called Koli.
Ah.
Yeah, that's not that far. It's only halfway to Lapland. So if you don't have time to go.
Just half the country then. Brilliant.
Yeah.
They're all but 1,000 kilometers.
Yeah, but you see the lakes and some small kind of not mountains, but a little bit.
Great archipelago.
I've heard about it and I need to come back in the summer for the midsummer. That's the best time to go for that, isn't it? Excellent. Peter, Mikko, thank you so much for the Gear Change episode. It's been brilliant. And I'm looking forward to the event tomorrow and we can get some direct feedback from other humans. That'll be really fantastic. Really humans.
No harm to your planet.